Welcome to Killer Women with your host, best-selling author, Danielle Girard. And now, Danielle's next killer woman.
Hello, and welcome to Killer Women Podcast, a proud member of the Authors on the Air global network with more than 4 million listeners. I am your host, suspense author Danielle Girard, and my guest today is Lori Brand. Lori is a lifting enthusiast, group fitness instructor, yoga teacher, and software quality engineer. In past lives, she's been a gymnast, dancer, Playboy model, and bodybuilder. Her time in the body wars trenches led her to realization that getting strong rather than shrinking is the way out. In an effort to spread the word, she's had articles published in Strong Fitness Magazine, T Nation, Inside Fitness Magazine, Define Fitness Magazine, and more. Bodies to Die For is her first novel. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is so fun. So I really enjoyed your book. I read from it earlier today on my quote of the week Mondays. I actually did it on a Monday this week. I don't always do that. Before we get into all the incredible stuff about women's bodies and diet culture, can you tell our listeners a little bit about Bodies to Die For?
Sure. So it's a thriller, and the tagline is "The body image war is moving offline, and fit girls are dying." And it revolves around two main characters. There is Gemma, who is a IFBB bikini bodybuilding pro. And there is Ashley, who is overweight. We actually say that she's fat and frustrated. She's a software engineer. And it's their clash online and how that clash online moves offline. And so it's the fat activists versus the fitness influencers, wellness culture, and how the whole thing spirals out of control. It climaxes at the Olympia, which is like the biggest bodybuilding competition in the world. And at its core, though, it is it's about the war on women's bodies, the wars we wage on each other, and the wars that we wage on ourselves. It also takes a hard look at social media in the $70 billion diet industry. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about this because, as you said, there's a ton to unpack here. And actually, one of the things I think is it's a hard thing to talk about, right? Because, you know, we all, every woman, every person should feel comfortable in their body. And yet, of course, I don't even know how many of us actually do, but it takes, I mean, I'm 53. I had to think about how old I am. And I finally, I'm like, okay, I am good. And I think, but my 20s, my 30s, even my 40s, it was just such a struggle. Like, you know, and there's so much put on us as women. So talk to us about sort of like, you know, I mean, first of all, what is your sort of sense of what, you know, what is the sort of way to look at all of this, and what are we doing wrong? That's a big question, Lori. What are we doing wrong?
So I think there's two things. Okay. I think one of them is that we're all judging each other. Right. And I think, and I really think that we have to stop judging each other. We have to, and not just judging each other, but judging ourselves, right? Give each other and ourselves some grace. So that would be like a big step in the right direction. And then the other thing is we're so often placing our self-worth on these external beauty standards. And external beauty standards shift, right? They're always changing. Everybody's got something that's a little bit different. You'll never please everybody. So if you're always looking for that external validation, you're always going to find yourself, I think, wanting or lacking. And so, like by the time you get to the end of my book, you know, it brings up about how, you know, wanting to be strong, because if you set your goal on getting strong versus shrinking, it's a growth mentality. And you know, it's not what you can't eat, so you shrink. It's what you need. It's what you eat to nourish your body. And also, if you set your goal and say, I want to do a push-up, I want to do a pull-up, I want to squat 100 pounds, I want to walk to the end of the block and back, whatever it is, whatever strong is for you, you can set yourself a goal, an attainable goal, and you can do that. And it's very empowering. And once you start setting these goals for yourself and you start to just tick them off, and then you increase your goal and you increase your goal, you'll find that you just become incredibly, not just physically strong, but mentally strong. And it's a big mind shift. And that's why I wrote the book. So anyway.
I love that idea of like not shrinking, because I think a lot of us are like, I want to weigh X number of pounds, or I want to fit into that size, whatever. But I love that idea that, what we really want, I think, is to just is to feel strong. And I think women in particular, right? Because we're not the physically stronger sex always,
Yeah.
and because I think society has this idea that we're not really supposed to be strong, or some of us are saying now we're sort of saying women should be strong, but then there's still people saying women shouldn't be strong, women
Yeah.
should be secondary. There's this so many mixed messages, and particularly for our young women, right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
what do we tell them? We just want, but the idea that you can do that you can set a goal and accomplish
Yeah.
it.
I think when we're talking about young women, I would say even our daughters, right? And even
Yeah,
young girls. And I think it's really important to model if you're a parent, or even if you've got some kind of even if you're an aunt, or you've got, younger daughters or younger girls in your life, that you model a strong woman, right? That
yeah,
you model good eating behaviors. When I say good, I mean, like, you don't say to yourself, you don't say out loud, oh, I shouldn't be eating that, or oh, this is so terrible. Oh, I'm so awful for eating this, because little ears are watching, are
yeah,
listening, right? And
yeah,
and that, your daughters or young girls see their parents or other women in their life exercising, being strong, doing hard things. Maybe you do obstacle course training. I don't know, whatever you find empowering, but they
right,
see you enjoying your body, using your body to do cool things,
right,
rather than just as something for somebody to like admire. Right.
right,
You're going to use your body. You're going to do something with it. I'm going to go, run a 5K, or whatever appeals to you, you know?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and exactly. And I think living inside those, living inside those bodies and feeling like
Uh-huh.
the purpose of the body is to get you to where you want to go, to
Yeah.
enable you to do things. And if we're able bodied, right? If
Yep.
we can walk, down the beach, or
Mm-hmm.
ride a bike down the beach, or,
Yeah.
take a vacation and walk through the streets of a new city,
Yeah.
then that is really should be our goal. But it is
Yeah.
hard. I mean, and let's talk about social media, because I
Yeah.
think it's a real problem. And I notice, I mean, my daughter's 24, so she's right
Uh-huh.
in the thick of
Yeah.
that, self judgment, others judgment,
Yeah.
that it's out there. Where's the like positivity? Where's the sort of like it's out? I know there are sites that sort of that do it,
I,
but
Yeah, so I think also you have to look at yourself, right? Like how you are consuming social media.
yeah,
If so, like, I tend to follow a lot of girls exercising. Like, I really like Olympic weightlifting, right? And so I follow a lot
uh-huh,
of girls snatching, right? And I find it empowering. I find it like inspirational. I'd be like, oh my God, that's like so cool, right? So if I get that kind of feeling, that's a good thing. But there might be other people who, if there are certain sites, like if you're somebody, say, who is recovering from maybe an eating disorder, it might not be good for you to follow, like, say, before and after sites or diet sites, or whatever. You might find that triggering. And so
yeah,
I think we have some responsibility to ourselves, what we choose to follow, right?
yeah,
And being honest with yourself and saying, this isn't good for my mental health, or maybe it's not good for my mental health right now.
right,
And just being a consumer of that. Also, I think not not engaging with the crazy, like when things start to blow up on social media, maybe you just, take a step away and
yeah,
not engage with that, because, oh
right,
my, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It gets super super crazy.
Yeah.
Well, there's also
Bless
this
you.
fat shaming thing, which is,
Hmm.
you know, and actually, it's interesting about sort of the correspondence between like food is the single trickiest addiction, right?
Yeah, it
Because
is.
you can't give it up, right? I
Totally,
mean,
right? Yep. Yep.
and yet, and so many people are like, I don't know if you've read Roxane Gay, but writes
No.
beautifully
Okay.
about, she went through trauma. She was gang raped,
Hmm.
and she started to eat
Uh-huh.
as a way to sort of like make her body into something to feel protected. And I
Yeah.
think some of it was the idea that if she looked a certain way, no one would ever hurt her that way again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some of it
Yeah.
was like to kind of become invisible because of that pain. And
Yeah.
she didn't share that pain with her family. She couldn't at that time.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I think that's a thing too. We have to just sort of like, there is there eating and trauma and stress and depression, and
Yeah.
they're all so wound together. And yet, you can't just be like, okay, I'm going to show up at my AA meeting and just stop cold turkey eating. It does not work that way.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. So on the Saturdays, I volunteer as a yoga teacher at a homeless shelter for women and children, and we will
Amazing.
very frequently we will see it's like when I say transitional housing, they'll frequently stay for say like 6 months. Like they
Yeah.
they come in, they stay there, they kind of get on their feet and they leave. But we will very often see people gain some weight, because they maybe are coming here because they just quit doing drugs or they had a drinking problem
Yeah.
or they left somebody who like a guy who was very controlling of them or who was maybe potentially physically abusive or whatever, and they're making all these strides in their lives, but sometimes they'll say like that they feel so awful about what they look like, but hey, you just quit meth, okay, like,
Yeah. Right.
I mean so sometimes we just have to really give ourselves that grace, and it's so
Yeah.
hard to know, and you really can't know, right, for each individual person. You don't know what that is, what food or whatever is serving for them right now. And that's what
Right.
really one of the reasons why I really would like to see us quit shaming each other, quit talking. Like I will not buy if I ever see like on the cover of a magazine where it says like so and so got fat, like with the actress on it,
Oh,
like so,
yeah.
or if it shows like a woman with like a one of those rectangles over her eyes, like she's a fashion note because she's like bubbling out of her clothes or whatever. Like don't buy stuff like that. Just refuse to
Yeah.
buy it, right? But
I
yeah, we just
know.
have to give each other that grace and that kindness. You can be anything in the world. Be kind, you know.
Oh, I think that's right. I think that's,
Yeah.
and in particularly women. I mean, the
Yeah.
men walk down, nobody pays attention to them, but, and
No.
also aging. I mean, there's
Yep.
so many
Yep.
wonderful, I mean, like Jamie Lee Curtis is such a
Mm-hmm.
fabulous voice on aging because she will show
Yeah.
you, she will come out without makeup on. She will say, this is
Yeah.
what we look like. And it
Yeah.
is true because, it gets, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I find it easier the older I
Mm-hmm.
get, because you're just
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, there's not, I'm not going to be 20 anymore. I'm
Right.
not going to have a 20-year-old body. I'm not going to have a 20-year-old face. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
now going to sort of just do what feels good to me. But I do wish there was a way to sort of inspire people to do that, and to inspire them to like you said, to sort of look at their neighbor and say, instead of, wow, she does look like she's put on some weight or hasn't slept in a month or
Uh-huh.
whatever, to be like, hey, is there anything I can do to help?
Yeah.
It seems
Yeah.
like maybe, you're having a tough time, because clearly when there are signs, especially on, on all of us, when things are
Mm-hmm.
not going super well. So can you
Yeah.
talk to us? But let's get back to the book, because we could talk
Okay.
about
Oh,
women's
sure.
issues
Okay.
forever.
Okay. Okay.
But I appreciate that. I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack, and you know, I don't even know where to start other than to say I love the idea that we should be kind to one another,
Mm-hmm.
and and men sort of sometimes I think they pit us against each other,
Yeah.
sort of, or the patriarch system pits us against each other. So we
Mm-hmm.
should be really nice to each other, extra nice, so that we can say fuck the man. Pardon me, my
Okay.
French. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's talk about there's some, can you talk to us about, this is your first book, so
It
this whole,
is.
I know, which is so interesting in itself.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about sort of how you wrote it,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of the process it went through before, between, I know you kind of drew the cover. You
I
showed me that
did. I
you had,
did.
yeah, that was so fun. You kind of had
Yeah.
an idea of what you wanted it to look like. So tell us sort of the process. What was it like? How long did it take?
Okay, well, so let me tell you first, I was actually writing a different book when inspiration for this pinged. I was maybe like 20, 30,000 words into another book. And then it was in January of 2020, Jillian Michaels was interviewed on BuzzFeed News, and she was asked what she thought about Lizzo as a body acceptance role model. And she said, why are we talking about her body? Why aren't we celebrating her music? Because it's not going to be great if she gets diabetes. I don't know if you remember, but social media completely blew up, right? And
Uh,
it really captured my attention. And then a few months after that, Adele posted a picture of herself to Instagram, and it was clear that she had lost a lot of weight, and people came out of the woodwork, and some were saying that they were disappointed that they were disappointed in her because they viewed her as a role model, and other people were saying they thought it was great that she had lost this weight. And then she came out a little bit later with a statement about it because there was just so much controversy, where she said that she'd been going through a dark time and she turned to exercise to help her deal with it. But the thing is that Adele shouldn't have to make a statement, right? Because she doesn't
no.
owe any of us her body. But so it was this thing that happened in like the spring of 2020 that just captured my imagination.
Mhm.
I just couldn't let go of like of these two sides clashing. And what if this moved offline? I just couldn't shake it. And so finally I told myself, you know what, I'm gonna set this other book aside. I'm just gonna write for like one day. I'm gonna see where it takes me. And I like kicked out like 5,000 words. And then I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? Okay, I'm citing the other book. I'm like running with this. And so then I wrote this book. I want to say the first draft didn't take me that long because I just like but maybe not compared to you, but for me it took me like 3 or 4 months, I think, to get a draft
I don't
because
write a
I
first
was
draft in
I
3 or 4 months.
don't know
That's
like
fast.
that but so I blew through it because I like really like I don't know, like I was just captured by this, right? But that was a first draft and it needed a
Yeah.
lot of work. So I finished the first draft and I had written another book, I want to say 10 years ago, and I had queried it. I got some offers, or not offers, I got some requests for fulls, partials and fulls, but I never got an agent.
Hmm.
And I started to realize from the feedback I was getting from that first manuscript that I was going to need a significant rewrite. And I didn't really feel like putting in the work. It was almost like that first book I had to write for me.
Yeah.
Whereas this book I had to write like for the world because I had something to say, right? And
Yeah.
so because though I had already lived that first one, I was more cautious this time, right? I was like,
Yeah.
all right, just because you're done, don't go like querying people, right? And
Yeah.
so
You might not be done. Right.
yep. And
Right.
so I set it aside. I don't know, maybe for like a few weeks. Then I rewrote it some more. I got it as absolutely tight as I thought I could possibly get it. Then I went and I got some beta readers on Goodreads, I think. I had sent it to them, got feedback from them. Then I got I did 3 beta readers, and if one person said something and if it resonated, I changed it. If it didn't resonate, I might not have. But if 2 said something and it didn't resonate,
Hmm.
I still thought about it really hard. And if all 3 said
Yeah.
the same thing, it didn't resonate, I fixed it anyway. And so I did all that. Then I queried it. And I initially only queried women because I thought only women are going to care about this, right? That's not a guy thing. But then but there was one agent who I really respected, right? I really respect Shane Salerno. I've always just really liked that guy, right? And so I finally thought to myself, well, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so
Yeah.
I queried him he's not my agent, but I queried him on a Saturday night at like 10 o'clock because I have no life, right? And and so I wake up at 2 in the morning. And what do you do? Well, you might, you've been published for so long, you might not remember, but what do? I check my phone to see if anybody has responded to any of my emails at 2 in the morning.
I have
Uh,
been doing that every year for,
okay.
yeah,
Okay, so
25 years. Yeah.
I check my email at 2 in the morning, but oh my God, he responded, and he said, I'm not taking new clients right now, but this sounds promising, so I'm CCing a younger agent who I think could potentially be a good fit if you want to check him out. And I was like, whoa. And so, and then he even responded like 30 minutes later, he wrote back again and said it. And one more thing, I think if you could get the tone right, you could have something here. He was thinking subversive. So I wrote the word subversive on a post-it note and I stuck it on my vanity in my bathroom. And then I contacted that other agent, Jackson
Hmm.
Keeler, who's a guy. And, Jackson read my manuscript and he signed me. And then when he took it out, and then Jackson and I, he's a very developmental agent. And so
Yeah.
and so when he signed me, this is just crazy. He and I are talking and he's saying like, okay, well, I think, in the second act, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The second act?
I know. I
And
know.
he's like, the second, and he's like, well, I said, well, how many acts are there? And he said, there's 3. And so I got off the phone with him and I Googled 3-act story structure. And Danielle, I was blown away. I was like, get out. There's an actual like this could have helped me enormously had I known that, man. Oh my God. But I read so many thrillers that I kind of inherently
Yeah, you knew it. Like I still don't.
yeah. Yeah.
I still work very much by feel. So
Yeah.
I don't know that, yeah, but you've heard enough stories, you've read enough stories to know
Yeah.
what the sort of sensation is of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. So then he and I rewrote it. We made it. He just really helped me clean that up. I'm really thankful to him. And then he took it out, and we initially also, so we took it to all women editors except for one who was a guy that Jackson knew, and we sold it to the guy.
Yeah, it's great.
So you just never know.
So
Yeah.
don't discount men. I love
Yes.
that. That's a great
Yeah.
message. And
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, men, actually, this isn't just a female phenomenon, right? I mean, it
Hmm.
absolutely happens to men. Men are self conscious about how they look. Men are fat shamed too. It just
Yeah.
happens more to women. And it's the beauty industry, the fashion industry, it's sort of
Yeah.
more pointed. But I bet you there are male models who feel the pressure to keep the weight off and be
Yeah.
skinny and aspiring actors and whoever. But yeah, so I think that's totally fair, and I love that. That's a really good,
Yeah.
because I think we can't assume. That's a
No.
problem, right?
Yeah,
We
and
can't
you know
assume.
where I got really lucky, and this is just straight up, this is straight up luck, is that I think one of the reasons why Blackstone bought it. So Daniel had liked it, Daniel Aaron Haft, but he gave it to some other people at Blackstone to read, and it just so happens that one of the women in marketing, Bree, she is a female bodybuilder.
Oh, there
And
you go.
she was like, "Oh my God, we have to be Daniel buy this book." And so that did help. Yeah, at least I think. I don't know. But yeah.
Well, I mean, it needs.
Yeah.
I mean, every book needs a little spark of magic and a
Yeah.
lot of sort of
Yeah.
solid, a solid work behind it. And I haven't
Yeah.
read a book in the bodybuilding world, and I know you are. So tell us about your own, because it
Okay.
sounds like you've done a lot of this kind of work. I never went to the gym until about 10
Okay.
years ago. I started going, and I actually
Uh-huh.
go to sort of a CrossFit gym, and I
Uh-huh.
love it. We
Yeah.
don't call it CrossFit anymore, I guess, because
Uh,
of that guy,
oh,
but
okay.
it's, yeah, but it's that style, and
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I'd be a gym person,
Mm-hmm.
but I love it when somebody's telling me exactly what to do.
Okay.
Um, so talk to
Yeah.
us about how you got into that, and what do you do
How I
now?
got into bodybuilding. So, okay, so I'll tell you how I got into bodybuilding. So I've been pretty much athletic for most of my life, but then so I've got three kids, but my second and my third are twins. And after they were born, when they were so my oldest was like two, when my 2.5 when my twins were born. And I still exercised until my twins were a year old. Then I had a tummy tuck, and the recovery was brutal. And I just kind of fell out of it, right? I did exercise for maybe 6 years. And I didn't gain any weight or anything, but the interesting thing is something in my mind kind of changed, right? I felt like I was becoming like mentally weaker. I don't know,
Mhm.
I wasn't as happy as I used to be. I don't know. I started to feel like I just got walked over all the time. And then my kids all were in school, and I almost like went through like a midlife crisis, right? Like I all of a sudden I had like my days free, and because I'd been a stay-at-home mom. And like, what am I gonna do with my life? And so I really started lifting weights then, just because I actually wanted to get strong. I just felt like I was depressed, and I felt like I wanted to get strong. And it was lifting weights then, which was a completely different, from in my 20s, where I was really focused on what I looked like, right? It's always about the package, right? So then I started lifting weights with this goal of getting strong. And that's really what changed for me mentally. And that's then when I started writing for fitness magazines and things. But I got into bodybuilding because I just really then got into lifting weights like big time. But because I was lifting weights with this new mentality, right? That's when I was trying to really notice how many women with these great bodies were seeing so many flaws in themselves. But so
Yeah.
that's really when I got into bodybuilding, and I stayed with it for a number of years. And then I finally eventually I just kind of got like, it's very much about your package. It's what you bring to this. You even call it your package, like the package that you bring to the stage. And I instead kind of got to the point where like I wasn't so interested in what my body looked like, but I wanted to like do cool things with it. And so
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
then I got I kind of walked away from bodybuilding. I got into Olympic lifting for a while. obstacle course training because I kind of hurt my shoulder with Olympic lifting. But I've just kind of been in this fitness space ever since because I just love it. Right, it makes me feel really good. It's like a uplifting thing. So yeah,
I
I
mean,
do a lot. Yeah,
the endorphins are real. I mean, I
yeah,
think the endorphins are
absolutely,
real. I mean,
absolutely.
and you can't, I don't know that you get them from anything quite like the way you do when you sort of exert yourself and sweat.
Mhm.
And I have just, so, I have just discovered these, and I haven't done one, but I
Uh-huh.
wonder if you have done one or know
Uh-huh.
them, the Spartan races.
So I've done a few mud races,
Okay.
right. So I've done a few of those. I think one of them might have been a Spartan one. I can't remember. Um, I've done like maybe three of them.
Tell our
Okay,
listeners what they are, because they're kind of
okay,
like, they're sort of like the last thing, they're the most unfeminine,
yeah,
fabulous thing that
yeah.
I think you could do. Tell us what
Okay,
they are.
so they're like these like so the last one I did was I think called the Tough Mudder. And so they're in the middle of nowhere, first of all. There's like a field somewhere that somebody must pay a farmer off to use or something. And they have obstacle course. They'll have an obstacle course there, but then they'll also it'll be like you'll like run for a mile, then like you'll like wade through like marshy, muddy water. You'll like crawl underneath weird stuff. You'll scale some walls. You like go across like monkey bars. You'll have to like carry like something heavy. They just have
Right.
all these various things that it's like obstacle course spliced with like running somehow, and somehow you
Yeah.
become really dirty and muddy at the end of it. After the last one I did, I actually got so much. I ended up with mud in my ear, like seriously mud in my ear, and it got compacted in there, and I had to go to the doctor and get it like removed because and like all this junk came out of my ear. But
That's
it's
so
really fun,
it sounds fun.
It is very
It's like
fun.
when we're kids and play in the mud, and it's
Yeah.
there's also this, I think the ones that I have seen are like kind of
Mhm.
team sports. So it's like a
Yes.
group of you're all trying to like
Yep.
get stuff done and win for the, and it's a little bit like those, there's the reality shows that are
Yeah.
on TV, The Amazing Race or whatever they are. But for
Okay.
me, it's just like the idea of being part of a team where
Yep.
and you end up falling in the mud, and that's super fun
Yep.
and funny. And so I want to
Yeah.
do one. It's on my, but not the big one. There's like a big Spartan, and then there's like littler ones. And a lot of them still mean you have to like run 8 miles. And I don't want to run 8 miles. So
So what I would suggest for anybody listening is wear a pair of tennis shoes you're never going to use again.
yeah,
Like you're going to throw them away. Whatever you wear that day, like anything that you bring or you wear, just figure
yeah,
it's done because it's just going
yeah.
to be filthy when you're done with it. Yeah. At
But
least the
that
tennis
is
shoes. Yeah.
something about that is just so appealing to me. And I wonder what that is. That's the part of me probably that was never supposed to get muddy as a kid. But
Okay.
I love that idea. And there's also something about the friendships you make in the
Mm-hmm.
gym, both
Mm-hmm.
male and female friendships, that I find really, because you are kind of, I mean, at least in the right gym. I think gyms
Uh-huh.
can be a hotbed of, competition as
Yeah. Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But in the right gym, and on the days when you can't do anything and you're
Mm-hmm.
barely, whatever, there's always people going, okay, you got this. And then on the days when
Yeah.
you're feeling really good, it's a, it's a very positive experience, I think.
I think usually it is. And one thing that my book might not quite portray because it's a thriller, right? But bodybuilders are some of the nicest people you'll ever
Oh,
meet.
I'm sure.
I had to make some of them kind of like catty in my book just because otherwise it's not a book, right? It's a thriller. Somebody's got to die
Well,
and things, but
I
yeah.
really appreciated there was one woman who was brand new from Kentucky. I'm going to forget
Yes,
her name.
Kentucky Crystal. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Crystal, right.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought there was that moment when you kind of got the idea of what and how Gemma treated her and what that would have
Uh-huh.
been like versus the
Mm-hmm.
other, not as nice.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's that. Of course you get the idea. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
true of everything, right? I mean,
Yeah.
right? You came to your first Thriller Fest. Was that your first
Yes.
Thriller
It
Fest?
was my second one. My second one.
Second.
I went last year. It's very
Wait,
fun though.
right, and writers can seem so intimidating and scary,
Yes.
and yet
Yes.
they're also right.
The thriller writers are so nice. I've heard that romance writers might not necessarily be. I don't know if that's true or not, but the people at Thriller Fest are so lovely. You know, like I haven't anybody who I ever introduced myself to, who if I came up to them and said, oh, I love this book of yours that you wrote, everybody was just more than happy to talk to you. And
Yeah.
everybody's very down to earth, very real. And then also you get to another good thing about Thriller Fest is you get to hear these different famous authors talk who are really at the top of, the top of their game. And a
Yeah.
lot of times they'll talk about what it took to get there that
Yeah.
not everybody's aware of, like the failed manuscripts, the books that got canceled, the books that that got turned down, and like where they sold 3 4 books and they had a lot of success, and all of a sudden nobody wanted the fifth, or their agent
Yeah, I
dropped them. And
know.
you hear about these things, and you go, but they're still here. Look at them now.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's if nothing else, just to hear that resilience. If you want to stay in the game, it sounds like it's resilience.
It is it's
Uh,
and it's being open to learning forever.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
being open
yeah,
to when somebody says something about your book, even if it's not what you want to hear, it's being
yeah,
open to sort of,
yeah,
listening and continuing to strive to get better, I think.
yeah,
So, and it sounds like you
yeah.
did that. I mean, I think one of the things that we see with a lot of first time um, novelists, and it was true, certainly
Uh-huh.
true of actually my first 3 books
Uh-huh.
are permanently buried. But I think it's the idea that you finish it and you're like, I'm done. And
Yeah.
so I'm about to go actually on submission with a book that I've
Mm-hmm.
been working on really for like, I've written books in between, but this book
Mm-hmm.
I've been working on for like 3 years. And
Okay.
I know it's not done yet. I mean, I think
Okay.
it's pretty damn good, but
Yeah.
obviously if it sells, an editor will do something more with it. So I have to be
Yeah.
open to the idea that
Yeah.
it's not done until
Right.
it's done.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and you have to love an idea enough to really live with it for a long time.
Very much. Very much. That's one thing that I can't get over is how slow publishing is, right? I
Yeah.
started writing this in 2020, right? It's
Yeah.
2024, and here is going to be landing June 11th. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Crazy.
that is exactly right. It's a, yeah. And I'm sure if you compared the very first version of it to the version that's going to be,
Oh, oh, I can't even, I just didn't know what I was doing,
of course,
but you can still see, I haven't actually looked at it, but I know that inspiration is still there.
of
I
course.
do know
Yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
really about the kernel. There's that
yeah.
little kernel of the story, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if if it's the thing that you latch onto, then it lasts. But the rest of it really, yeah,
Yeah.
of course it changes. Of course it does.
As a matter of fact, what Kentucky Crystal, that woman that you said,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
was originally going to be one of the main characters. And
Wow.
Gemma was just going to be like this little secondary character, but she was so much more interesting. I'd written about
Hmm.
6 chapters where Kentucky Crystal was like the main person. And then Gemma had just kind of come on the scene, and I was like, I like her so much more. She's so much more interesting that I just I changed that. Yeah.
And actually that's another thing, right? You have to be a
Yeah.
sort of willing to be like to listen to when you're like, that's just a better option. You have to be willing to
Yeah.
listen to that and know there's going to be work going back and removing one
Yes.
character. Yeah. So
Yes.
it's not a, yeah, but it's in that sense, it's sort of also like bodybuilding, right? You do
Yeah.
the work, the repetitions, you get
Yeah.
stronger, you get better, you get sharper,
Yeah.
you are more aware of the right way to attack a scene. Or I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of things that are really, worth doing are that way, but we don't have a lot of patience for it. I know
Yeah.
I have not got good patience, and it's 25 years. My first book came out in 2000, so
Wow.
it's yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to say I'm getting patient, but I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah.
just getting older.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but
Yeah. But when I would get a little bit, I don't, maybe frustrated isn't the right word, but there would be like parts in the middle of it where I'd be like, oh my God, what am I doing? I would sometimes think, well, but now I've got like all these people like counting on me to like, because my agent has signed, like there's really like there's no giving up now, right? The guy has signed you, he's put in like hours and hours on this. So just
yeah.
suck it up and get it done. you
Yeah,
know?
it's like any job. At moments, it's
Yeah.
like any job. You're like, I don't
Yeah.
want to be at this desk. I don't want to be doing this work, but here I am. I
Yeah.
have to do it. So this
Yeah.
is so exciting. Are you working on
Thank you.
something new?
I am. We are in, the manuscript's done. My agent and I have gone back and forth on it. It's with him right now. I sent it off to him last night again. It's not ready to go out yet, but it's, I think in the next month or two, we might like to try to take it out if we think we can. It's a book. I don't know how much I'm supposed to say about it, but I'll tell you
No, you can,
what,
yeah, feel
okay,
free.
okay.
You can hold it in
No, I'll say,
give us,
I'll tell you the
okay.
subject matter. Okay. So this book that we were talking about, Bodies to Die For, right? So it's about, the war on women's bodies and that we got to quit judging each other for what we do with our bodies. So the second book, is going to have two main characters, but one of them is going to be a software developer turned OnlyFans creator. And so it's going to take a look at sex work, right? And a woman's right to do what she wants with her body. So
Uh-huh.
that's we're going to dive into that next.
I love it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah,
it. Well, that is so exciting. So here we are.
uh-huh.
We've got Bodies to Die For, Lori
Yeah.
Brand. We will have a copy of this book for giveaway. So follow
Oh,
us on
good.
Facebook at Danielle's Killer Women. Lori, it was so fun to
Yes.
talk to you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being patient. I
Oh,
totally
you
messed up
bet.
the time with
That's
Lori.
okay.
I'm getting back from New York and my brain is still clearly on Eastern time. But anyway, this was
Mhm.
fabulous, Lori. It was so
Yeah,
fun to talk to you. I hope it sells a million copies. And
me
everyone,
too.
thank you for joining us on Killer Women. We'll see you next time.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you.